Hey everybody! Today's video is going to be sanding out this propeller from the way you see it right now until the point where it's ready to be varnished. This is a 58 by 33 prop, which means the diameter is 58 inches and the pitch is 33 inches. This is a SAE1 bolt pattern, which means it gets a 2 1/4 center pilot. But on my props that have a hub thickness of 2 1/4 for their hub thickness, then I usually just drill a recess for the 2 1/4 on the back and then drill a 1 inch all the way through. And that's what I did on this prop. So the very first part of the process that I like to do is that I mark out the hub and cut all the extra off. So this is an SAE1 bolt pattern like I had mentioned, so I will use my SAE1 template, and that's going to give it a 6-inch face. This is what I call the face. So a lot of times when I talk to people, there's not a language barrier, but what I call things and what other people call things. So I call this the face of the prop, how big I make the face of the prop. And I call my hub thickness, that would be like from the bottom of the table to right where I'm making that measurement. So my hub thickness is 2 1/4. My prop face is going to be 6 inches. And my bolt pattern is going to be 4 3/8. And basically I'm just going to use these lines for the bandsaw. And they're just kind of a rough guide. I don't want to go inside that line hardly at all because that's my perfect circle. And whenever the customer puts the crush plate on that, I want it to, be a perfect circle because their crush plate is a perfect circle. So if I've dug in anywhere there, they'll be able to see it, immediately when they put their crush plate on. So now I'm just going to... I don't cut on my line because I'm going to sand after this, and I will sand up to my line. So I'm just trying to cut a little bit on the outside of this line whenever I do my bandsaw work. And after I get the bulk of that cut out, then I will go ahead and cut those little corners off, which is my favorite part. Today it went really well. There are some days where it doesn't go well. So I was cutting it out and I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm filming today because it went really smooth today. So I was glad you guys got to see it go well. Now, a lot of people like to ask, well, if you cut too much, then what? Is it ruined? I have not ruined one this way before. If I cut in a little too deep or gouge it a little too deep, then really what it just means is that I'll have to sand it out. So I make more work for myself. And by sanding it out, I'm going to take a little bit more weight off that side of the hub. So I'll have to go back and take some more weight off the opposite side of the hub. It's not anything that makes it non-airworthy. It just produces more work for me. And this prop is made out of solid maple. There's a little bit of color in that middle board, but it is all, that just happens to be some of the characteristics of that board, but it is a solid maple prop. And I get my lumber from Liberty Hardwoods out of Kansas City. And that's about 4 hours from us, but they bring it down on an 18-wheeler. So that's super nice. So then, after I'm done with all my bandsaw work, then this is the drum sander. And I had a hard time getting a video of this today for some reason, but I kept hitting the camera with the end of the prop, and so there's not as much video of this part, but basically I'm just trying to blend the hub to the blade and make it nice and smooth and pretty and keep it even, because if my balance is off vertically, this is one of the places where that can happen. And I think you could probably hear my dog barking in the background, but I've tried to record the voiceover on this probably 5 times now, so I don't want to start over again. Okay, so that's what it looks all sanded out. All the lines are taken out, it's all smoothed out. My circle looks really symmetrical, so I'm happy with all of that. So after that, then I take it over to my sanding stand, and I'm going to sand out the blades. This is a shorter prop, considering that probably my most common prop is a 74-inch propeller, and lately I've been sanding a lot of 80-inch and 90-inch propellers. So this one seemed like it sanded out so fast because I've done so many of the bigger props lately. But it probably took me maybe 10 minutes, like for the airfoil side, 10 minutes for the flat side. So maybe 40 minutes total to sand the prop out, rough sand it. So this is sanding it with my 80 grit sandpaper, just to get the lines of the lathe out of it. And the airfoil side sands a lot faster than the flat side. The only things I really have to watch out for the airfoil side is that I don't hit that airfoil too many times. So I definitely sand on that trailing edge a little longer, and then I come up and do the leading edge on that airfoil side. And I also like to make sure that my trailing edge stays thin, so that's another reason why I spend a little extra time on it. A thin trailing edge to make sure that your air comes off and meets nicely with it. I don't want to say it's sharp, because it shouldn't be sharp, but it definitely needs to be thin for your trailing edge. A fat, bulky trailing edge will not give you a good propeller. And I've given myself some extra length there at the tip of the propeller. So whenever I sand, like in there, sometimes my sander will kind of fall off the end there, and it makes the end a little flatter. So I give myself like an extra inch on each end before I cut it to actual length, just to make sure that I don't accidentally flatten it or something there. we go. First side's done. Time for the second side. But I think I skipped that part and just showed you guys the finished product. All nice and pretty. Let me go ahead and turn around and do the back side. And there you can see those are just the saw blade marks from the lathe. And that's all we're trying to take out. We want to keep the back completely flat. We're just trying to take those lines out. Here, I use the adhesive backs instead of Velcro on this sander. On my other sander, I use Velcro. I don't know why I decided to do it that way, but I get my sandpaper from McMaster Car. It's nothing special. It's just 80 grit. Comes in a humongous roll, and I go through it so fast. So, but that's where I get it from. Just McMaster Car. Just like that. I probably go through 1 to 2 pieces of the 80 grit per prop. So I guess that's not terrible. And then I use a Dynabrade sander. I think I've shown you guys before. This, I got the upgraded horsepower model, and it really does make a difference, and it's really great. So you can pause your screen and take a look at that. It'll tell you what you need to know. But they are my favorite sander, and I've had 3 or 4 of them over the years. So after I'm done sanding it, then I will cut it to the correct diameter. So I think I have it at 60 inches now. It needs to be 58. So I still need to cut 1 inch off of each end. And a lot of people ask, how do you decide the shape of the tip? I do square very rarely. A round tip is generally more efficient. But sometimes I do leave them square, just depending on the application. But whenever I decide the shape or how I get the round, basically I pick up anything that's laying around the shop that is the right size round. For this one, it just happened to be that 2 1/4 circle that I had used for the hub. It fit absolutely perfect on this blade and gave me the perfect circle that I needed. So that's what I use for this. Sometimes I can use a washer. Sometimes like it doesn't matter. I've used, what was that? I can't think of it. A seal. Yeah, I use an oil seal most of the time. It's the perfect size for my 72-inch props. So it's not very scientific, but that's really all it needs. So now that I marked them out, I went ahead and took the pitch measurements while I was there and had the level out and everything. So I did those calculations, and I wrote down the angle of the blade, which I record for every propeller. The pitch was good, and it was identical on both blades, which is super good. So then after I cut off the extra on the bandsaw, then it's really the same thing as the hub. I will take it back over to the drum sander and smooth all that up. Then after I smooth it up, I'm going to start the balancing process. I still need to thin the tips, but because I know it is proper diameter, I can go ahead and start the balancing part. And it doesn't take much with this sander at all. And just smooths it right up. So when we balance them vertically and horizontally. If they're out of balance vertically, then I take material off the hub. If they're out of balance horizontally, I usually just take like a thin layer off the back of the heavy blade. So this one, it wasn't bad. I would consider that not bad at all. Vertical is really not bad at all. But generally, when it's pretty close to being correct, then I'm super timid about how much to take off. So I don't know that it really helps me a lot. It's like, oh, it's super close. I still go back 3 or 4 times because I'm so timid about how much to take off. I'm also going to go ahead and shape the tips now. And I kind of draw this little line. I'm going to remove everything that's above that line and then feather the tip back and taper it back into the blade. It's kind of hard to get a good angle of this to show you guys what I'm doing. Doing it this way, I can't see very well, so I didn't quite take it to the line, and then I went back and smoothed it up a little better. There. I really need to be able to see that line whenever I do that, so this is how I kind of look cross-eyed. I'm concentrating really hard. When AOPA came out and they did a little article on the shop and they were taking videos and they said, could you smile a little bit? And I said, I'm sorry, this is my concentrating face. Sometimes it's hard to video and get my concentration because I still am, doing the job. So that is my littler sander. So now that it's balanced really well, or fairly well, I will go through, and this is 100 grit. So this is a 5-inch Dynabraid sander with 100 grit sandpaper. And I just did that over the entire prop to take out all the 80 grit swirl marks. And I lingered a little bit longer on that heavy blade. And then I went ahead and I'm just kind of smoothing up. I'm smoothing up all the hard edges. Everybody does their props differently, but I like a soft edge. I like everything to be nice and smooth. So I round all my corners on mine. So that's what I'm doing there. I'm just rounding and smoothing and getting that spot where the drum sander stopped and my orbital sander started. I take that and blend those two pieces together. And then I hand sand the whole thing. I think I just showed you guys hand sanding the hub, but I do the entire prop hand sand, especially the tips and the hub. Those are the most important parts that you really just can't get it with a sander. And I do that with 220. So then I know I'm really close on balancing. So I go ahead and see where I'm at there. And I'm still heavy. So I mark my heavy side horizontally. But vertically I'm good. So that's half the battle. So then I'll go back, and I'm still using my 100 grit sandpaper because I'm just taking off very, very little. And this is the part where I think I sped it up a little bit. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, I'm just sanding that heavy blade. And then I'll come back and I'll try it again. And it still wasn't enough, dang it. So I'll go back and I'll sand a little bit more. And at this point, my 100 grit sandpaper is kind of losing its bite, which is actually just perfect for where I need to be. So I'll take it back and keep going with that 100 grit. And I'm just taking a very, very thin layer off the back of the prop. and because I don't want to mess the pitch up. The pitch has to stay the same on both blades, so you don't want to take very much off at all. And you don't want to mess up the tip tracking either. And I take it off evenly off the entire blade, not just one spot. And I really didn't think I had it, but oh, that's not this time. This is not. It's the next time. Looks like I still have to do it one more time. But that's exactly what it's like whenever you're bouncing. You're like, oh yeah, this is going to be it. This is going to be the time where I actually get it done. Nope, gotta go back. Try again. Okay, there we go. That time I got it. So now it's balanced vertically and horizontally. And one of the last things I do is that I stamp it with the diameter and pitch and the serial number. So there's a little view of my day today and how you take the prop from right out of the lathe to ready for varnish. Thanks for hanging in there with me. This is kind of a longer video, so thanks for watching, and we'll get you another one out soon. Thanks.